Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here. My name is Patricia Mestre. I'm based out of Portugal, and I'm here not only as a Microsoft employee, but most of all as a passionate about the breaking the gender bias. As a Microsoft employee, I also participate. I'm an active member of what we call the ERG, Women ERG, which is the Employee Resource Group. So at Microsoft, we engaged in different groups to help different causes, and my cause is the gender bias. So I'm super excited to be here. So for the next 20 minutes, I would say my goal is to uh, make you think, challenge you a bit to understand what is our part, what can we do in this for this topic, for this role, for this challenge. So come along, I would say. A lot about diversity and inclusion, and sometimes it's I would say very necessary to go back and to what really is and what does the dictionary says, what is the definition, but what is it to ourselves. And so when we talk about diversity, we often think about the representation of different races, genders, backgrounds, but we believe that it's much more than that. So I believe it's much more than that. It's also embracing all the ways that we are different, whether it's your culture, your experience, it's your background, your physical abilities, or even the way you think, right? So bringing diversity to the table is super important. Also talk about the why part, the inclusion part. So inclusion, on the other hand, is creating an environment where every individual feels valued and empowered to contribute fully. Especially here at Microsoft, our motto, our mission is to empower every person in every organization in the world to do more, right? To have an impact. So this is all about empower an individual regardless of their background and feeling what they belong. And why do we, it's 2024, 25, oh my God, this is 2025, and we still need to talk about this, and especially when it comes to gender. And why is it so important to still talk about it? Because the reality is that we have a gap. We have, and the gap is not going any shorter at this point. So the gender gap is represented in the pay. And these are from 2022, 2020. And you can see the difference between men and women pay, and especially going bigger as we talk about advanced degree, as we advance in terms of degrees, which is scary, to be honest, right? And on the right, I just took an example of Eurostat. So this is just in Europe, but it's scary. It's interesting to see. So it's still very much valid that we talk about it, and we still mention, and we still undercover why. So why is it so important to talk about? Because the gap is real in pay, is also real in decision-making roles. So on the left is worldwide, on the right, I think it's only in the US, but you can see that um, there is more men named John running big companies than all women in the world. And on the left, you can see that only 22% of CEOs are women. 34% of board members are women, so barely parity level. If we talk about board chairs, only 18% are women. And then regarding key positions, we talk about 35% being held by women. So it is still very important that we talk about it, and especially starting as soon as possible in terms of regarding age. And why does this happen? I mean, it's very tough, or it's not easy to say this is specifically because of this, but there are biases. There are many very common that women face at work, and these are some of them. The being nice bias, and you'll see how this is important when it comes, and I'll talk about it there and how AI can help. But the bias of women being nice is interesting when you're hiring, for instance, right? When you use strong and words that have the biases of not being so gender attached. So for sure, that's one bias. The attribution bias, which is you only did that because it was pure luck. The performance bias, that women can't drive or can't do what is usually or typically a man's area of expertise. The affinity bias, which is talking about only things that make sense for one gender or another. The maternity bias, which is women need to stay at home and take care of the kids. And then the intersection, which is forgetting all about all the other stuff that women are so good at, besides being a woman. These are some of the biases just to make you think a bit. But I wanna understand what we all can do collectively. But first, a little game, and I would love to see the chat as I'm doing. I'm not sure if I can do that, but while sharing my screen. But please add to the chat, and I'll make sure to check as soon as I can here. But it's a little game to kind of reinforce or to understand if those biases are real or how do they reflect um, on our day-to-day. So this is 2021. It's in the EU. It can be everywhere else, but in 2021, what was the percentage of female students with a bachelor degree, meaning that they went all the way so they went to the university and they got out with a bachelor degree. So if you could add in the chat A, B, C, D. Can you please tell me what is being, let me see if I can check here. Oh, I can see it. Okay. D, A, K. Nice. Perfect. Okay. Sorry. This is a little hint of how this is all comes out. And it's 62. So we still have the majority of the majority of the students being women taking a higher degree, right? But why is that not being reflected when it comes to decision-making roles, etc.? Second game around, second question, what are the two main areas of expertise women choose to study? So is it more about the business science, management law, health education, arts and languages, information technology? Oh God, you got it all, of course. Here it is, of course. And it is true. So they are the ones that women are the most represented gender in college, and but very specific towards health education. You can see it here. Social science, journalism, even if you law, but when it comes to information and technology, if it comes to engineering, if we're going with STEM, which I'll ask in a minute, it's different. And here is a question on STEM. So, and by STEM, by the way, it's an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math, right? And so what percentage does women graduate from STEM courses in the EU? Let me see if I can see the chat here. A, B, A. It's got it. It's D. So it's not completely the opposite, but it's still STEM is really an area that it's women are not the majority represented in the higher education there. Giving you a hint here already, what is the difference in gender when it comes to leadership roles? I've already shown you a bit, but wanted to call out. Yes, 6 men to 4 women, usually. What is the percentage of women participating in governments around the world in 2020? This is worldwide. D, C, C, A. Okay, this one is different. Okay, here it is, 21%. And this is the final one, which I'll just go because I just showed you the pay gap. 26% overall. So, I mean, this is why, so this is a little, some of the biases are here, such as STEM, for instance, as we've seen, and we don't fully understand what causes the barriers, but of course, some of the things are easy to infer or easier to infer. So for instance, the lack of awareness or exposure to role models, the fact that we need to be more exposed. So more women in governmental roles, more women in with decision-making roles are indeed role models for other little girls to go and follow their footsteps. Stereotypes and discrimination, for sure, the biases are here. Social and cultural norms and expectations, because society still expects in many places in the world for women to not assume or not to go into those decision-making roles and be more in the background. And the way we are all raised up and causing low self-esteem, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, those are some of the biases that we cause there. But I mean, let's all collaboratively work towards that. And so what can we do? Let's start with the role models, right? We start and we do see many role models that we can inspire ourselves with. I mean, some in science like Marie Curie, or in technology like Eddie Lamar, in governments like Ursula von der Leyen, or even in the we talk about the corporate world, right? Sheryl Sandberg, beautiful book called Lean In. She was the chief of operating officer of Facebook, now Meta. She went in Google, so she's definitely a role model also in the corporate world. So from government to tech to the corporate world, we do see there. So definitely that's something we could do to get ourselves inspired to see more of women examples there. And then I think continue the discussion, right? There are so many more topics that we can all address ourselves. So why not embrace in STEM? So one of the things that Microsoft is doing is actually creating the room to make STEM more engaging and fun, also for little girls. So and we teaching little girls to code and not to feel STEM is this hard thing to be doing. There are so many inspiring books. These are a couple of that we definitely recommend. I definitely recommend, and some movies as well. So this is all about um, changing the stereotype as well. And then there's so much more, right? I mean, this is just, again, as I told you in the beginning, the goal of this would be to just inspire you and challenge you to do more, and to and to think, how can I be part of the process, right? I think AI is especially when it comes to this new area of AI that we're all in and that we're learning to navigate. I think AI, I don't see it as I see it as an enabler, right? And definitely a contributor to shaping gender biases. And I'm going to give you 5 examples on how AI can contribute to shaping a new gender bias. For example, span from HR to actually to other parts of our day-to-day job. So um, one example of how AI can fight the gender bias. One is to spot bias in data. So AI, we can actually have AI being trained on all data where women were not often shown as scientists or leaders. So we can actually ask AI and use several tools for AI to check data for unfair patterns and alert humans to fix it before training AI models. So when it comes to checking big data, big chunks of data, AI can really help us accelerate on that and help us use AI responsibly. Talking about human resources, so many job ads use words like strong, competitive, things that have the bias of not being related to women. And so the solution is AI tools like Textio can rewrite job characteristics to use gender neutral language so everyone feels welcome. It can make smarter hiring decisions. There are studies that says that usually managers tend to hire someone that is resembles like them. If we have men in decision-making powers, we tend to hire men. So I would say companies unintentionally favor certain genders for jobs based on past hires. AI can focus only on skills and experience and ignoring the gender. And so everyone gets a fair chance at a job. So especially in the early stages of a hiring process. Some websites and apps show different results based on gender, like ads, for instance, right? If you're visiting a website, and of course, we know based on cookies, if you're a man or a woman, they can show you different ads. And so AI can test websites to make sure that shown fair and equal results are shown for everyone. And regarding media and education, AI tools that write news or suggest videos that might show fewer women in leadership roles, AI can help balance recommendations to ensure fair representation of all genders in books, in media, online content. So definitely being intentional when it comes to that. And again, by the way, I used Copilot to do this infographic, kind of summarizing everything that we just shared here. But I think my last message here is that I think there's a huge part that all of us can do to break this barrier. And it starts really the sooner the better. I have some minutes left to show the rest of some examples that we still have at Microsoft. Let me run very quickly through that. As I showed you, Microsoft, we empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And the way we do it is through intentional to making sure that we have a diverse representation, that we have a strategy that is inclusive. There's a huge focus on accessibility, and the ERG groups that I'm part of are safe spaces for employees to share experiences, driving innovation, and especially in this culturally sensitive AI world, how can we navigate that? Some of the ERG groups that we have here, sharing this experience, all I'm saying is this is something that you can also do in your own organization, in your school, in your extracurricular activity. This is an example of how we can all work together towards a goal and influence. For instance, the ERG group here at Microsoft, we can actually influence to provide career support. We can influence to give back to the community. We can influence to how we even making sure that in the leadership team we have the right balance between men and women. And I think that's the power of the employee resource group. I think to finish up, this is in Portuguese. So if the audio doesn't work, the subtitles are in English. And this is a little video that we did, and that I'm sharing here to inspire you on how even in organizations that are so open to these topics, we still have a long way to go.
Baixa dedo se já te disseram que a tua roupa ou aspecto era inapropriado. Baixa dedo se sentes que a gestão familiar é da tua responsabilidade. Baixa dedo se já adiaste ter filho para não prejudicares a carreira profissional. Baixa dedo se já te elogiaram fisicamente no momento inoportuno. Já te criticaram por saíres mais cedo para ires buscar os teus filhos à escola. Baixa dedo se já ligaste a alguém quando andavas sozinho ou sozinha à noite na rua. Na tua empresa há mais chefias masculinas. Baixa dedo se já te disseram que a tua profissão não é típica do projeto. És a pessoa do agregado que mais faltou ao trabalho para ficar em casa com o filho. Já descobriste que alguém do sexo oposto, no mesmo cargo, recebia um ordenado superior ao teu.
Eu 7.
Eu fiquei com 3. 6.
6.
Acho que ser mulher no mercado de trabalho só não é. Não tirem uma luta adicional, mas com uns patamares desafiadores. Há coisas que nós não pensamos assim no dia a dia. Quando comparamos, dá para perceber que existe uma discrepância.
Some questions are obvious for women, unfortunately.
Às vezes é um bocadinho aquele reality check.
Acho que nos faz pensar um bocadinho mais sobre coisas que nós não podemos pensar todos os dias, não é?
And that's what I had for you today. Hope this was useful and made you think, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions you might have.
Thank you, Patricia. It was really impactful and valuable to hear all of these from you today. Now we invite you to engage with Patricia by opening the floor for questions. Please add your questions to the Q&A chat where we will answer them. But I have a question for you as well, Patricia. How can AI teams ensure that algorithms and data models are free from gender bias?
I think It's a collaborative work. So AI models are use the source that it's out there on the World Wide Web, right? So I think it needs to be a human, a society, a community change to reflect what's happening out there, because that's what they do. They search for everything that it's online, and they resurface the answers for us. I think if we're by being aware and by actually being more intentional or paying attention what's happening out there, we slowly changing, and the eyes will and the eye models will change themselves as well. But we can train them, and we can pay attention. So the short answer is to pay attention to what's going on, to be intentional when we are working with our data, and make sure that we fact checked, as some of the examples I just shared.
Thank you so much for your answer. We have a question from the Q&A. Do you think that if artificial intelligence replaces humans in most jobs, will women be more likely to be employed, or will gender equality persist in this case?
I wouldn't say I have a negative perspective on the future with AI. I see AI as a supporter, a helper. So it gives it the head start. The way I use AI today, the way I see it moving forward is seeing as a fast start. So whenever I want to create a document, whenever I want to brainstorm about a topic, whenever I want to, I use AI to give me that accelerator. But I do see the humans being in the front end, still taking the decisions. We should not take whatever AI gives you, you need to have that human layer component, and that makes you unique. So I don't think that AI will replace you. AI will replace the person that does not know how to work with AI. Embrace AI, for sure, it's here to stay, but don't fear that they would replace you, for sure. Co-pilot, it's a hand-holding moving forward.
Thank you so much for your answer. Another question from the Q&A is, for people who grew up with mentality or upbringing that a job is supposed to be for a specific gender, or what women are already ignorant, how can AI raise awareness in places where it's not common or frequently used?
I wish I would know, to be honest. I think AI has become so generative. AI means that we can now interact with a machine without having to use a proper coding language. Fact alone made AI so accessible for all of us, because right now we can open ChatGPT, we can open simple AI tools like the filters on Instagram, anything. There's so many. We're already using AI in so many. So the fact that it's available to so many people in the world, it gives us a power. But it's still not available anywhere. So I'm not sure how we can. I think that's the million-dollar question, for sure. How we can make it available and useful in where it isn't, right? Yeah.
We've talked about Microsoft's impact on this case, and as well as the role models, how they are impacting in this gender gap. But can we discuss on how is it possible to close the gender bridge gap, which one of our participants has been asking?
I think it's a combination of things. I think here I've been reading so much. It's amazing to because there's different perspectives on this, right? Education plays a key, for sure. As the sooner we have people aware of this, we can. So as a mother, for me, that's my number one. My number one concern is raising kids that are aware of these issues and that they know. So education, for sure, it's something that is available to help. Talking about it, the little things, talking about it. I think that's why I showed you this statistics, because we might live in a little bubble and say this does not happen here, but it does. And I showed you an example of how at Microsoft we're so much aware of everything that's going on, and we still see the differences in the hands. So talking about it, for sure. Having women as we see in decision-making roles as a role models. We see on TV, everything we see in the media, for sure, also support. So I think it's not, I wish it was a straight answer, but I can see it as a combination of factors where education for me plays a huge role.
Thank you so much for your valuable answers, and we are
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you here with us. That wraps up day 2 of Inspiration Week. I would like to also have a special thanks to make this week come true to Sage and Red Hat for their contributions as our sponsors for this evening.